There's been something we've spent a bit of time on over recent months, and it's linked to our campaign on ICE. And ICE, the more people I speak to, the more I get this message that ICE is such a significant problem in the community. The courts tell me, the police tell me, the emergency workers tell me, and I don't believe the federal government's addressed it yet. Appropriately, it's not even mentioned in their drug policy. But this is a related area in some ways. We keep hearing about attacks on emergency workers, particularly on ambulance paramedics. And I don't think there's any question the violence and aggression on the emergency workers, on the ambulance paramedics, is getting worse. Now, most of us head off to work. The biggest problem we're going to have during the day is being dragged into too many meetings. For an ambulance paramedic out working for the community, trying to save lives, trying to help people, could be putting their own life on the line. In the studio with me is an ambulance paramedic who's recently been through exactly this sort of situation, Ben Dalton. G'day, Ben.
Yeah, good morning, Neil.
You okay?
I'm certainly recovering. I'm on the mend. But yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks.
How long you been in the job?
Just shy of 2 years.
Like it?
Love it. Yeah, wouldn't trade it for anything.
You must be thinking about that now. What happened?
I was working with my partner on the ambulance. We were dispatched to a case where a patient was required to attend hospital. They'd had a mental health team come out and decide that this patient needed to be managed in hospital. So we were dispatched as a transport with police to bring this patient to hospital. Arriving at this patient's residence, she's become quite aggressive and has subsequently pulled a knife and attempted to stab me in the neck with it.
Well, how'd that happen? Where were you? What were you doing?
So we were standing in the hallway, and our positioning and where we place our bags and all that kind of thing is always a factor, so that we've always got a good egress and access to scenes.
But
so
do you do that because of the threats?
Most certainly. So there's a lot of...
You go to a job as a paramedic and you've got to be careful where you put your gear.
Always.
So you can get out quickly.
It literally is the difference between sometimes copping a punch or getting away is where you put your bags or equipment, where you leave doors open, you make sure you follow patients into houses rather than be followed. All these things are always a factor when we approach scenes. So at this particular case, I was the go-to paramedic, so I did most of the communication with the patient. I was standing not in the doorway, but just to the side. We never really stand in the doorway because sometimes doors get opened and things get flung out at us. The patient's opened the door, and in subsequent talking, she's pulled a knife and then attempted to stab me in the neck, and then proceeded to chase me and the police officers down the hallway. We had to barricade ourselves behind a glass door, and she's then attempted to smash that glass door with a knife, and over the next preceding 90 minutes a siege ensued, and so she came back with a number of items such as a pot of boiling water at one stage.
Where were you during the siege?
Behind the glass door. So there was a foyer that we could partition off. So the police officers that were there with me at the time, they were dispatched because this patient over the past week had reports of some verbal aggression.
Yeah.
So they were there for our safety as much as anyone else's.
So you're actually trapped in this room through the siege?
We had a ways to get out behind the room, but we couldn't lock the glass door. So we had to, the police literally stood with their feet and hands on the glass door to stop her coming through it. So
and
we were on the other
side. She had a knife? What, boiling water, you said?
Yeah, so she would come back and forwards, and she came back at one stage with a pot of boiling water and was threatening to throw that through the cracks in the door at us. And she struck the knife against the glass door, attempting to break it and get through to us. So it was quite confronting.
Was she screaming at you at this stage?
Yeah, the whole time. So it never really stopped.
One would assume she was psychotic.
Yeah, look, the particular, that issue behind it all is kind of, it's hard to ascertain given the brief time we spent with her, what was actually going on with her. But there was probably a mixture of events going on.
Were the drugs involved, you know?
We'd have a suspicion that there would be, but as I said, I couldn't confirm it with the limited time we had.
If the courts are involved, that's up to them to sort out. But were you frightened?
Yeah, most certainly.
I don't blame you. It must have been a terrifying experience.
It's weird. I got in the car after I finished that shift, and at the time, throughout the entire job, I remember just feeling in work mode. I remember standing there while the siege was going on, talking to my partner about if it's needed and this patient gets tasered or something like that. If it gets to that level, what would we do? And we discussed ongoing management. Luckily, none of that happened. The police were very good, and they managed to de-escalate her just verbally. Complete work mode the whole time. And then after the job, got in my car to drive home, just couldn't stop shaking. Started feeling quite emotional, and just breaking down at inappropriate times over the next couple of days. So, yeah, it was it affected me.
How close did the knife get?
Probably about 10 centimetres. So,
she swung it at your throat.
She swung it in an upwards arc. And the main reason it missed is because I leant backwards.
You saw it coming.
And that's one of the images
I suppose.
That's one of the images that sticks in my head. It's just a knife coming for my throat. My partner was standing in the hallway, and he said to me that all he saw was, because he couldn't see into the apartment, was an arm carrying a knife just come swiping out of the room, going straight for my neck, and I just leant backwards, and that's why it missed me. And I then stumbled back into the police officer, and he had to draw his pistol, and then we had to retreat through the glass door. Talking Melbourne.